I weighed 287 pounds. I was bedbound in agony and my life was over. Carnivore wasn't some health trend. It was my last attempt at survival because nothing else worked. I started the right way. Eat when hungry, listen to your body, don't go to extremes, but nothing worked. Zero weight loss, zero healing. I wasted more time trusting the process. So I stopped listening. All the advice that the carnivore community said was wrong saved my life. So in today's video, I'm sharing with you 7 habits that are gonna piss people off, especially the ones who are stuck, failing, or making excuses. If you are ready to hear the truth, then this is the video for you. Hi, if we're just meeting, my name's Claire, Carnivore Claire. On this channel, I share things all meat-based diet, weight loss, and chronic illness. So if that is your carnivore jam, then do hit the subscribe button. So when I first started carnivore and the weight wasn't coming off, I started OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. So over a 1 hour period, I would eat my whole day's calories and then I would eat nothing for the next 23 hours. When I did this, the weight dropped off. And I've had many viewers who have tried it as well on my advice, and they are also seeing the same results. When people hear that I only eat 1 meal a day and I eat it within the 1 hour, I get a lot of pushback. Let's be honest, only eating once a day to normal people, everyday people eating a high carb diet, it sounds insane. And if I was eating a high carb diet, it would be insane. I would never manage it. But when you're already in ketosis because of the carnivore diet, it's the most natural next step. It was a game changer. For the very first time in my entire life, I felt in control of my body and the food that was going into my system. What happened was my appetite vanished, my food noise, which was a huge thing, disappeared. Food noise is intrusive thoughts about food. So if you are on a high carb diet, you are likely thinking about food all of the time. And that just completely disappeared. My skin cleared up, it just become really clear and healthy looking. My weight began dropping. I was losing ½ pound a day. My energy increased and I felt on top of the world. I never felt so accomplished, so enabled, so I'm trying to think of the right words, but I just felt on top of the world because I was finally in control. I'd spent my whole life being told that I had no willpower, no strength, I couldn't do this, I didn't really want to lose weight, I liked being fat. All of these things were in my psyche, and then suddenly I started OMAD and everything changed. I was in complete control and the weight fell off me. In the carnivore community, I hear a lot of advice about how women shouldn't do fasting or OMAD. It should only be men. If you are going to do fasting, then it should only be for short periods of a time. I've been doing it for 18 months and I'm perfectly healthy. If I had followed the advice in the carnivore community, I do not believe I would have lost a single pound. Eating as much as I want, as often as I want, is not something that was ever going to work for me. My next video is going to be all about OMAD, so do subscribe if you want to know more about that. But let's get on to the next point. So when anyone starts to research a carnivore diet because they're interested in doing it, it seems really extreme because you're currently on a high carb diet with lots of fruit, lots of veg. We've been brainwashed our whole lives into believing that we need those things. So when we decide to do the carnivore diet, it seems so absurd that we wouldn't have any fruit or veg, that we would just have meat, eggs, and maybe a bit of dairy. And I wasn't any different. So I cut out all fruit, I cut out all vegetables. In fact, I cut out all plants completely and carbohydrate. The only carbs that I had were the natural carbs that were found in eggs. It seemed so wrong because of the brain training we had been given our whole life from birth up to whatever age we are now. We are told of the importance. We need the fiber, we need the nutrients from the fruit and the veg. And without it, we'll get scurvy, we will get really ill, and it could be dangerous. When I was first a carnivore and I was in the carnivore community, I kept seeing these influencers that were including seasonal fruits. They're like, I'm a carnivore, but I do have seasonal fruits. Or I'm a carnivore and I include honey and fruit. But I tried that and it wasn't working. It was making me really ill. Anytime I had any fruit or veg, I just felt so inflamed and I was full of pain. And then when I omitted it and went clean carnivore, so I was only eating meat, fat and eggs, I just felt the healthiest that I've ever felt in my life. I saw a lecture by Dr. Chaffee and he talked about the fact that plants are killing us. They have toxins in them that are designed to protect themselves from being eaten, from being killed, in the same way that animals have teeth, I guess, to protect themselves. Play a little clip here right now.
These defense chemicals cause a large burden of harm and illness in the population, and we're not treating it as such. We're thinking, oh, this is a disease, we need to treat the disease. We're not recognizing this is a toxicity, we need to remove the toxin, okay, and let the body heal naturally.
To be honest with you, if I could eat fruit and veg and be a healthy person, then of course I would do that. Fruit and veg is delicious, but it is not healthy for me and for many other people as well. My go-to dopamine hit is Greek yogurt and blueberries. I could eat that all day, every day. Anytime I do, it activates my food noise, it activates my inflammation, it activates my hunger. Over a day or two, I will lose all control. They call it a slippery slope for a reason. For the most part, I will not let my brain negotiate these kinds of foods because the slippery slope. But occasionally I do, and every single time I end up falling off of the wagon. And then what happens then? It holds back my weight loss. I might be going great guns with my weight loss and I'll be just on the brink of losing a little bit more weight, and then I'll do that and the weight goes back on again. On and off, on and off. I've stayed around 150 pounds for months and months because I've been struggling with this very thing. I'm just coming out of it now. So hopefully I will lose a little bit more, but it does hold back your weight loss. So if you are a clean carnivore and you are only eating fat and protein, that's going to stand you in much better stead for consistent weight loss. If you're still watching at this point, you are serious about this, so hit that subscribe button down below and consider purchasing a coffee so I can keep telling you the truth about how I lost 140 pounds. Many years ago, I'm going back about 15 years ago now, I lost 100 pounds on the SAD diet. And the one thing that enabled my success back then was weighing myself daily. And when I lost my 140 pounds on the carnivore diet, it was no different. I got on the scales every single day without fail in order to ensure my success. This really comes down to a personality trait. So for me, I need big goals. I need to be able to see numbers. I need to be able to see change, and I need to be able to see quite fast change as well. So stepping on the scales was essential for my success. It may be the opposite for you. You know you best, but for me and many people like me, this is what we need to do. The reason is that I'll step on the scales every morning to weigh myself to get an idea of where I'm at. If the scales go up, that is my cue to rein in my eating a little bit that day. If the scales stay the same, then I will still rein it in a little bit, not quite as much, but I will use it as information. And if it comes down, which while I was on OMAD and Carnivore, it did come down on an almost daily basis, it really spurred me on to be good that day. Any time that I never got on the scales, I just would not have my goals in mind, I would not have the diet in mind, and I just justify eating more than I needed to eat. And then over a few days, I would put weight on. The carnivore community tell you to chuck your scales out. Don't worry about it. Just eat as much as you want and the weight will fall off when you've healed. This is not advice that I followed at all. I already knew from previous experience it was something I needed to do, so it wasn't something that I was going to listen to the community about. And I still believe now that it was one of the major contributors to me being able to lose the weight in the way that I did. I find there's a lot of stigma around weighing yourself. If you weigh yourself more than once a week, it's seen as obsessive. But there should be no stigma to weighing yourself because you are being mindful of your health. Really, it's no one else's business. If you need to weigh yourself every day, then weigh yourself every day. It is seen to be bad for mental health because you're focusing too much on the numbers and not living your life. Well, I say if you are morbidly obese and you need to bring those numbers down, then focusing on those numbers is exactly what you need to do. I think tracking can be quite triggering for people who are in denial about their weight. I remember the very first time I got on the scales when I was at my biggest, it wasn't a nice experience. But knowledge is power, and once you know your starting point, you can see the benefit as you lose weight. I will say it was equally as important to me to take measurements as well. So throughout my journey, I took my measurements once a month. And I would take my bust measurements, my bicep, my waist, my hip and my thighs alongside a monthly weigh-in as well. And I kept a record of that each month so I could see over the month how much I was losing. And I was losing about half a stone or about 7 to 8 pounds, sometimes up to 10 pounds in a month. And that gave me an extra boost because when you are weighing daily, even though it's really, really beneficial, you're only seeing tiny increments, which means that you're not seeing the bigger picture. So it's equally as important to either take weekly weigh-ins as well as daily, or to take measurements as well. Another benefit of that is sometimes if the scales are not moving, your body is still getting smaller. So you're going to feel successful one way or the other. Did you know I have got a Facebook group for carnivores? It's completely free to join. There's nearly 3,000 of us over there. So do come and join. I interact quite a lot over there. So if you have any carnivore questions or you just want to share your successes, that is the place to be. The links will be down below. So when I first come to Carnivore, I saw all the influencers and everyone who was posting online eating copious amounts of meat. First of all, I don't know how they can afford that amount of meat. But secondly, the protein, there was so much protein. But I personally find that when I eat a lot of protein, I get a lot more hungry. My insulin goes up. What happens is it doesn't fill me up, so I have to keep eating and eating, which means I'm consuming more calories, which means the weight loss stalls. And my weight loss is what I wanted to bring down primarily. Once I started eating OMAD, I started to increase my fat. At first, just a little bit. I liked cheese and I used cheese quite a lot throughout my journey to help me be satisfied. But then I started adding butter, I was adding ghee, I was adding tallow, I was adding dripping. I started to incorporate more fatty cuts of meat. I love a ribeye. Ribeye and sirloin are the two meats that I have been eating for a long time now. You can see on my recent food haul on my other channel just how much of those two meats that I have purchased this month. On OMAD, I found that I needed to be about 70% fat, 30% protein in order to sustain myself for the 23 hours until I could eat again. Because I found when I ate more protein and a bit less fat, I just wanted to eat more frequently. OMAD wasn't working unless I went high fat. When people hear that I get 70% of my calories from fat, they are horrified. We grew up believing that fat makes you fat. And I still get a lot of comments in my videos telling me I'm going to do carnivore, but I'm going to do lean carnivore because fat makes you fat. I've got enough fat on my body already. I don't need to consume more. This is a complete and utter fallacy. There was some kind of study done, I think in the 1950s. If I can find it, I'll put it here, where it stated that fat doesn't make you fat, that it's carbohydrates that makes you fat. I've been 70% fat for most of my journey, and I've lost 140 pounds. So if you're going to follow the advice that fat makes you fat, then make that make sense. The weight fell off me. In fact, the more fat I ate, the more efficient my weight loss became. In addition, when you're eating fat and not carbohydrates, that makes your fat cells accessible. So once the fat that you've consumed is eaten, it will go to your fat cells to use up the excess fat, and that's how you will see the weight drop. What makes you put on weight is having excess energy for your needs. So you will burn X amount of calories per day, and if you eat more than that in calories, then you will gain weight. If you're at a deficit, you will lose weight. It doesn't really matter which of the macronutrients you're consuming, whether that is fat, protein, or carbohydrates. I know you're going to ask in the comments what I eat. I tend to eat a 200 to 250 gram steak. So that's either ribeye or sirloin. I try to stick to beef as much as I can. And I will also have 4 to 6 eggs cooked in coconut oil. And that tends to be my diet, unless I'm overindulging. Then I might have chorizo, and I might have bacon, and I might have cheese, and I might have this and that. But day to day, I stick to eggs and beef steaks. So a couple of months ago, I had a really big problem because I only eat beef, because whenever I eat lamb, pork, chicken, whatever I eat, I have histamine reactions and I get quite poorly. But the beef prices have skyrocketed. They are really, really high, and it was becoming unsustainable. The whole diet was becoming unsustainable for me. And people will say, just eat ground beef or minced beef because that's dirt cheap. Well, firstly, I can't have that because of histamines. I react to it very badly. But secondly, if you look at the prices of the ground meat in the supermarket now, certainly in the UK, the prices have hiked up on that as well. I'm looking at £7 for one steak, and that is at the cheaper end. If you go higher end, you're looking at 8, 10, 16, maybe even £20. I saw a steak that was £40. It's become really unsustainable to shop in the supermarket, and that is why I began shopping online and bulk buying for the entire month. So when I get paid at the start of the month, I will make an order, and I will order an extreme amount of meat that will give me enough for a steak every day for the month. I have done, in order to make it more financially sustainable, is I look for deals. I'm not loyal to one company. Every month, I just look at all of the deals and see who's offering the best deals. I've had some amazing deals. I got enough ribeyes for a whole month for £50 one time. You would never get that in the supermarket. There are other benefits to buying bulk online, because I'm on a very low income, and often when I'm going to the shop almost on a daily basis, as we get to the end of the month, I'm worrying that I've got enough money to see me through to the end of the month. And so by buying it online for the entire month, that removes that anxiety that I will not have enough for food, because I've bought my food upright early and I got an amazing deal. But also, when you're not going to the shop on an almost daily basis, you are not being tempted to buy other things, and it might not even be food stuff, it might be household things. Something else I found is that the meat tastes better online. It comes from a butcher. I feel like the supermarket meat is really chewy. I think they put a lot more chemicals into it. I don't know that. That's just my hunch. Something's going on because the butcher meat tastes a lot better quality than anything you will buy in the supermarket. In the carnivore community, when people go shopping, you always see them going into the supermarket to buy their meat. You never ever see them going into a butcher's or going online looking for food. So this is a rule that I came up with myself. And it's one that once I did it, I could not go back. I remember many years ago, I went on an elimination diet because I have ME, and Dr. Myhill, who you might know from the carnivore community, is actually an ME specialist. She had released an ebook advocating for an elimination diet, and it really helped, but I didn't add any salt. I went from a highly processed salted diet to next to no salt at all, and I got really dizzy, really faint, and I started to add salt and I felt better immediately. There's a lot of propaganda out there about salt, and that is because most people eat a high salt diet. So there's salt added into processed food, and everything that you eat high carby, it comes with a lot of salt. So if people are adding salt on top of that, it becomes too much. When you're a carnivore, you're not eating processed food, you're eating steak and eggs. If you do not add salt, then you are not getting salt. I use Celtic sea salt. I would recommend against table salt, but sea salt, Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt, Redmond's, all of those are great salts. Personally, for me, I like Celtic sea salt. It's got a real tangy taste to it, and that makes my meat taste a lot better. We need electrolytes, and salt is an electrolyte. So if you use adequate amounts of salt, you shouldn't need to add an additional electrolyte. I went over a year on carnivore not adding electrolytes other than salt, and I was fine. But I have recently begun adding electrolytes. I'm not sure they actually do anything additional, but I just like the taste because I don't like to drink plain water. Although I'm having some fizzy water right now. Once I started adequately salting my food, OMAD became more sustainable because the dizziness went away. So normally whenever I go into the shop, sometimes I feel like I just want to buy beef burgers or sausages or something that has already been prepared that I don't have to make myself. And so I will go and look at the ingredients. I do it with cheese as well, or anything dairy. I will always look at the ingredients. 9 times out of 10, almost 10, like 9.999 times out of 10, I will put the product back because I'll look and there'll be a whole list of ingredients. When I eat an ingredient, I want to see that one ingredient only. So if it's beef burgers, I want to see 100% beef. That seems to be an anomaly. Here in the UK, I can't find 100% beef burgers anywhere. So I just make my own. Recently I got into my mind that I really wanted some sausages. And so what happened was I went to the supermarket, it was Tesco, and I was looking through all the sausages. I was going through the ingredients on every single packet of sausages. I must have stood there for 20 minutes doing this. They all had added things in. There was a lot of herbs and spices, there was fillers, there was rice flour. I think the only way you're going to get truly carnivore sausages is by going to a butcher and asking for them. I come across sausages by a Heck that said 97% beef. By this point, I was really fatigued from looking at all of these ingredients and I just wanted to be done. So I look at the back and it says 97% beef and 0 grams of carbs. Oh, amazing. There's no carbs in this. I can have this. In the basket they went, put them home. I ate them, and then the next day, food noise like you wouldn't believe. So I go and look at the ingredients on those sausages. They do have herbs and spices, and they do have a few other things. It's just that because it is so negligible in terms of weight, that they can say anything under 1 gram can be labelled as 0 grams, and that's what's happened. For the most part now, I don't even try to even look at ingredients anymore. I know that if I'm buying anything processed, then it's processed. It is not a one ingredient thing. The only thing that I still have is bacon, which is processed, and I do check that there's no sugar, unless I've fallen off the wagon. And if I've fallen off the wagon, I'm not checking any ingredients on anything. An interesting thing, which a few of you might be interested in. Before I started Carnivore, I was gluten and soy intolerant. It would make me very fatigued. It would bring on my ME. It would make me very, very poorly. It would make my mental health drop to the ground. Inflammation, pain. Well, the few times that I've fallen off the wagon in recent months, I have not worried about whether I'm eating gluten or soya, and I have consumed those things, and I am no longer intolerant. So I imagine it is changing my diet and letting my gut heal that caused that to happen. So that is one positive thing, even though it shouldn't really affect me, because as a carnivore, I'm not eating gluten or soya anyway. But if the gentle approach or having a little bit of this, a little bit of that is not working for you, that it doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that that kind of eating is not designed for you, and you might be better off eating in a similar way to me. Stop listening to people who are not seeing results. Listen to people like me who have done the work. Try one habit, see how your body adapts to it, and build from there. You have got the power inside you to do exactly what I have done. If you are one of those people who are stuck but you don't know what is keeping you stuck, then watch this next video, because I tested 11 rules that I found out were keeping me stuck. And some of them might be things that you're doing too, and it might just be the click that you need.